Dan Bilzerian is the self-proclaimed king of Instagram. For years, this dude sold the internet a fantasy of private jets, guns, stacks of cash, and endless women.
Over 30 million followers, was hanging out with the president and getting on some of the most famous talk shows in the entire world. Back in the mid-2010s, he seemed untouchable. But things haven't been great recently.
But behind all that, and what we're going to be talking about today is lawsuits, federal investigations, and now his name has popped up in the Epstein files. But before we get into this, y'all, I do want to say that a lot of this stuff is going to be allegations and everybody is innocent until proven guilty. Like we do in every video on this channel, I'm going to keep it real with y'all. I'm going to give y'all some of my raw, honest opinions as well. And also, thank y'all so much. We passed 1,000 subscribers. I could not be more happy. Thank y'all so much. Y'all been running it up on the videos, but a ton of y'all still that watch the channel aren't subscribed. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the other buttons too. It helps me out a ton. And I like reading y'all's comments. It's cool having conversations with y'all and what y'all think about these videos. If you don't know Dan Bilzerian, he was born in 1980 in Tampa, Florida. His father, Paul Bilzerian, was a Wall Street corporate raider who went to prison for security fraud decades ago. Kind of weird, right? And I think that does matter about his father because Dan is a self-proclaimed multi-millionaire, all from poker, but a lot of people question that. A lot of critics say the money likely traces back to family wealth and financial maneuvering tied to his father.
It's hard to be self-made when your father's worth hundreds of millions of dollars and gave you basically every financial advantage possible in life. What would be more impressive is if he got all this and somehow failed. At this point, without a doubt, the biggest criticism coming at Dan was that he was a trust fund baby.
Either way, by early 2010s, Dan found something better. Instagram. Between guns, mansions, models, he didn't just get followers, he had built a persona, and the stuff that he was showing off on Instagram at the time was brand new to the world, and of course, that's going to attract a huge young male audience. And this persona and branding that he had created on Instagram became the foundation for his business, Ignite.
Now, do you pay these girls to come?
No. Okay, so
that's the big misconception,
I'm
right?
addressing that on my app, actually.
You have an app.
Yeah.
I'm just giving y'all a lot of backstory about Dan that you may not know already, especially some stuff about this Ignite company that we're going to talk about in this video, because he's denying having anything to do with Epstein, or at least I wouldn't even say denying. He just keeps saying Epstein is a fan of himself. But I just find it very suspicious that Dan seems to be living this life that seems very relatively similar to Epstein, and now he comes out in the files. Most people think that Ignite was simply Dan's company, but that's not totally the case. He was the CEO and the public face of this company, but federal prosecutors later alleged something different, that Dan's father was secretly controlling things behind the scenes while owing the SEC tons of money. Ignite and his father were charged, but Dan was not. He was the figurehead promoter and the beneficiary, but it could not be proven that he had any criminal actions. And then Dan even filed his own civil lawsuit against his own dad because he said the company was misusing his name and likeness. And I just think that is the icing on the cake. I don't know the relationship that Dan and his father have behind the scenes whatsoever, but just given that the poker money he's proclaimed to be a multimillionaire from cannot be proven, and nobody knows where that comes from, and there's also these allegations that it could be the family's money. I personally don't see a world where Dan and his father really don't get along. Of course, that is very possible. Y'all can let me know what you think in the comments. But I think there is a world where this could have been just a publicity stunt or some sussy stuff going on behind the scenes with the whole Ignite company, and possibly Dan and his father are working together. Who knows? Just a theory. Now let's talk about some lawsuits that actually happened with Dan, including some females. In 2014, there was a Miami nightclub kicking incident. Kicked a lady at a nightclub. She sued him, but once again, no lasting criminal charges against Dan. This sounds like some, all these people with a lot of money seem to always get off the hook with criminal charges. David, lock that man up. Dan tried to throw Janice Griffith into a pool, but she did not hit the pool and ended up breaking her foot. Bet you'll never guess the outcome. Lawsuit was filed by the woman, and once again, they settled. It was dismissed and no criminal charges.
dude twice for allegedly kicking a woman in the face at a nightclub, throwing a porn star off your roof. Did you do that?
Okay, so she was kind of like my actual date, but I couldn't be seen with her, so I had the other girl that I could like take to events because we were at Art Basel. And this one girl turns to the girl next to me, call her my fake date. I want you to move, like you can't stand next to him all night. And so the girl, rather than like discuss it or anything, punches her in the face.
Former executives accused misuse of company funds with Ignite, and Dan later sued Ignite himself after losing control. It just seems like every time there's women involved or business decisions being made, civil lawsuits happen, no criminal convictions. It just always seems like people with power and money are able to get out of any trouble. It's like Kylie Jenner and the whole Tory Lanez Megan Thee Stallion case. I know that's old, but maybe I could do a video on that because I always thought that was super weird that Kylie Jenner, like her name completely vanished from that. And she was very much involved that entire night. So fast forward to this week, they released more of the Epstein stuff. I'm sure we still don't even know 1/4 of the truth to all those files, but a lot more stuff was released, including a picture with Dan Bilzerian. Now, why would Epstein have any pictures of Dan Bilzerian whatsoever? Why would Epstein be involved with a guy that, he's always on boats and yachts, he's always at clubs, he's getting in trouble and getting out of it, he's always posting pictures, weird pictures with tons of different girls and stuff? Why would Epstein want anything to do with this guy with tons of money, tons of connections? And Dan's response is that Epstein was a fan. And there's nothing that proves any criminal activity between Dan and Epstein. There's no charges, no court findings. I just think Dan Bilzerian, especially since seeing that stuff with the Epstein and he may somehow be involved with Epstein, I just feel like a lot of these guys, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's Dan Bilzerian through Instagram, all these people with money and stuff are always doing some weird shit behind the scenes. And the reason for me making this video is all the weird stuff with the Epstein, the lawsuits, the dad's trust fund money, the alleged lies about making his money from poker. Of course, as a young kid, I liked Dan Bilzerian too. Every young male, I feel like, wanted that life. Like, that's why he got famous. We looked at that and we were like, oh, he got all these women and this and that. When I was like 15, it seemed cool that he could do all that from poker. He told a cool story, but in actuality, I think he's a trust fund kid. I think a lot of the stuff behind Dan is phony, but regardless, the lifestyle does replicate Epstein's a lot, and him being in the Epstein files with Post Malone nonetheless, very weird as well. Still gonna bump Post music, not gonna lie. But I think it's very weird, and I think there is more going on behind the scenes with Dan Bilzerian. Let me know what y'all think. Appreciate y'all watching another video. Thank you again so much for the recent support and 1,000. We're gonna keep grinding, and I will see y'all in the next video.